All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. Force here with a bunch of new news and updates for Diablo 4. First story is, will D4 be bigger than Diablo 3? If so, just how big? Currently, all signs do point to Diablo 4 potentially passing Diablo 3 in popularity by some margin, at least according to Blizzard. You might recall, following the last round of beta testing, Blizzard having tweeted out some stats about the particular test, and along with that, stating that this was the largest beta in Diablo franchise history, surpassing numbers seen, of course, in the Diablo 3 beta. Stating it's the largest would have to imply that. Now, what particular numbers are they comparing it for when they call it the largest? Let's see. One of the more notable stats, though, from this particular chart that they released was the fact that there were over 2.6 million wolf packs earned. Now, remember, the requirement for unlocking that wolf pack cosmetic was reaching level 20. So then we can, of course, deduce that 2.6 million people reach level 20, and that is quite a lot. And keep in mind as well that this unlock was once per account, so it wasn't once per character. These are single accounts, 2.6 million single accounts that leveled a character to 20. And we have to really assume, almost without question, that many times that number of people jumped into the beta but didn't play a ton and only maybe got an hour or two over the course of the weekend because they just had other stuff going on or they didn't have time to play too much for whatever reason, so in turn, not reaching level 20. Now, beyond the beta stats, Blizzard has noted some strong numbers for Diablo 4. This information coming from their recent Q1 financial results, during which they stated demand indicators for Diablo 4, which launches on June 6, are strong, although we continue to plan prudently. We expect Activision Blizzard's second quarter GAAP revenue to grow at least 10%, net bookings to grow at least 30%, and total segment operating income to grow at least 40%. Or in layman's term, when Diablo 4 releases, Blizzard expects numbers to go up. Like way up, which obviously isn't all that surprising, but it still raises the question, how does this compare to Diablo 3? Now, if you don't recall, when Diablo 3 released in 2012, it broke like all sorts of records. Specifically, it was the fastest selling PC game of all time, selling over 3.5 million copies within the first 24 hours. Now, this record was eventually surpassed and has actually been passed over many times, but it was the record holder for fastest selling PC game ever back in 2012. And then on top of that, lifetime sales of the game are estimated to be somewhere around 30 million copies, which does put Diablo 3 in the top 20 best-selling games of all time. So with that information, and at least according to Blizzard, the Diablo 4 beta being the largest in Diablo franchise history, it's reasonably safe to assume that Diablo 4 will surpass Diablo 3 in terms of sales and popularity, right? Well, maybe. Just out of curiosity, I thought, hey, why don't we take a look at Google Trends? So I compared Diablo 3 to Diablo 4, and by the way, I did this with all iterations and potential spellings and presentations of both games, and taking the most popular iteration of both. Upon initial glance, it's not looking so good for Diablo 4. So search popularity for Diablo 3 peaked in May 2012. As you can see here, it absurdly dwarfs the highest search peak for Diablo 4. But keep in mind, Diablo 3 launched in May of 2012, so it makes sense that that would be the peak of the game. So let's try to make the comparisons a little more accurate. At the moment, we are 1 month away from the release of Diablo 4, and search popularity sits at a 2 on the total scale of 100, comparing both games, with 100 being the most popular, the highest number of searches. What about Diablo 3 1 month prior to its release? What number does it sit at? Well, that was April 2012, and that number shows as a 22. Okay, so that's actually not much better when comparing the two games. So it does seem like, at least according to the numbers from Google Trends, Diablo 3 was far more popular, or rather it was searched online much more frequently 1 month prior to its release than Diablo 4 is now, a month away from its release. Now, Diablo 4's numbers will obviously skyrocket next month when the game releases. We expect the search results to be the highest on the release month, but what are the odds that it surpasses the peak popularity that Diablo 3 saw? According to the trend of this chart, it doesn't seem very likely. But this also doesn't mean that it can't or that it won't sell more copies either. Just because a game isn't being searched online as often doesn't mean that fewer people will purchase it. It just means that fewer people are looking it up on the internet. And I think we should also keep in mind when comparing these numbers that the industry as a whole has grown a lot since Diablo 3 released. Exact numbers vary, but estimates put the total number of people playing video games in 2015 at around 2 billion. 2015 was the earliest I could find, by the way. I would have done the year release of D3, but 2015, total number of people playing games was about 2 billion. Since then, year after year, that number has kept rising, and as of today in 2023, it is estimated to be just over 3 billion, with the growth expected to continue. So there's just a much larger pool of people playing games nowadays, and there are a lot more games being released a lot more often, a lot more things vying for everybody's attention. So even though search terms might be lower, it is still possible that more people will buy Diablo 4 than Diablo 3 because there's 1 billion more people playing games in general, even if attention is a lot more divided. I am actually, though, not willing to place any bets on D4 surpassing D3's sales numbers because, like I said, when D3 came out, it was record-breaking. It is still in the top 20 games sold of all time. That's a really big milestone to try to overcome. I think it's possible, especially since a lot more people are gaming today after all, and I guess we'll know soon enough when D4 releases and when and if Blizzard comes out with whatever those sale numbers are. Next up, we got some pretty cool updates concerning mounts. So we got our first decent look at mount variety with Blizzard posting a tweet this week that showcased 17 different mount variations. Now, as of the moment, it does appear to be entirely horses, although I would not be in the least bit surprised if eventually they move towards other rideable animals, creatures, or demons potentially added to the game in those seasonal updates. In fact, in an interview with Wowhead just the other month, Blizzard did discuss how they have plans to kind of loosen up with the dark and grounded vibe that the game will be launching with. Specifically, they said, at launch, Diablo 4 will have a gritty and grounded world. Things like a cow level, wings, or pets take away from that groundedness. However, as we go down the line, things will loosen up. So they're basically just admitting they are going to be open to adding more things that don't fit the vibe at launch. The wings, the pets, and almost certainly a wider variety of mounts, especially when we consider that the game is a live service game. It's going to have a battle pass. It's going to have a cash shop. Them selling mount skins or mounts that aren't just horses seems very, 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 very likely. The trend of kind of loosening up your like artistic tone is pretty common with live service games as time goes on. So I would not be at all surprised if Blizzard follows suit here. Now, as mentioned, at the moment, it is mostly just horses with like different shades of fur, although there were a few standout differences. We saw horses that are covered in blood, ones that are all sinew and muscle with no skin. We saw skeletal horses, zombified horses, and even a couple of like spectral or ghost-like horses, which were really cool. Some neat variations. And it is worth mentioning as well that as far as we know right now, these skins are going to be just that. They will be entirely cosmetic. None of this will be tied to stats, utility, or the speed of different horses, at least from what we've heard so far. Now, even cooler than seeing those different variations of horse and mount skins was a follow-up tweet that showcased about 30 seconds of some mounts in action. We saw several dismount attack examples. So we saw the druid shifting into bear form and slamming on the ground. We saw rogue's rain of arrows. We saw necro summoning up these bone spikes. We saw the sorcerer turning into like this icy wisp before exploding in shards of ice. And then we saw the barbarian doing some sort of a slam. Now, from what I understand, these are set particular dismount abilities that each class has, rather than just being able to like use any of your suite of skills while you're mounted and then dismounting with that skill. I do think there will be particular dismount abilities that we have access to. I'm not sure how and where these are unlocked and how much variety there is if there's only one dismount attack. And one really notable thing that I gleaned from this was that around the 5-second mark, we see an example of a character mounting up that does appear to be in combat. There looks to be an enemy engaged right behind them, just about to attack them, but then they get on the mount. I'm assuming here that mounting up in combat is going to be an option. We won't have to be like out of combat like a lot of games do require you before mounting. That's just an assumption though, just from this brief little clip. I'm not exactly certain here. Now, over the past couple of weeks, have you caught yourself asking yourself, geez, I feel like there should be more Diablo 4 news and more detailed Diablo 4 news? Well, That is a question that was recently raised a couple of days ago. There was this article on PC Gamer titled, "Listening to Blizzard explain Diablo 4 over and over again is driving me mad." The gist of this article was basically them complaining that all of the recent official coverage of the game barely goes into any real detail, but even more so, doesn't really show us a lot of new things, a lot of interesting things about the game, just kind of covers the most basic of information, and that there are still a lot of unknowns and questions about Diablo 4. And you know what? I would agree that that is mostly true. Like, most of what we've seen from Blizzard has been very watered down, broad scale marketing of the game with super simple explanations of its various features. There's still a lot about Diablo 4 that they haven't shown, they haven't talked about, and we just haven't seen at all. For example, everything beyond Act 1, the Fractured Peaks. Like, yes, we played through Act 1, Fractured Peaks. There was the beta. We got to explore everything that it's going to have to offer. But everything else, like all of the other zones, we've only seen very short clips here and there, scattered throughout the various marketing and gameplay footage that they've revealed. Nothing in length, nothing in depth at all to give us an idea of what to expect from those zones. And then there is also reportedly a 6th zone called Hell that is in the game that is underneath the 5 overland zones, and we know nothing about. It's just a complete, like, I don't even know if that's official yet. That might have just been a leak that I saw. Like, they've also really hardly showed any of the endgame systems, even considering all of these recent endgame focused videos and the live stream that they released. When you take the total amount of footage displaying these endgame systems that have been released publicly, it is exceedingly limited. We have really only seen the Ashava world bosses. We've gotten like a couple of clips, maybe somewhere between 10 to 15 seconds of the other bosses, and I don't even think we've seen all of them. And then similarly, they've really not shown any like lengthy, unedited, detailed footage of any of the endgame systems. Like, they haven't shown a single full Nightmare Dungeon run. We haven't seen extended, unedited clips of what it's like to play in the Hell Tides or to go through the Tree of Whispers. And I know that's just a bounty quest system, but nevertheless, they haven't really shown detailed examples of this. And of course, things like the Paragon board, we just get clips here and there, but no detailed, thorough walkthrough. And then also, something that personally irks me a bit is we've like seen no PvP. The Fields of Hatred, those open world PvP zones in Diablo 4, of which we do know that they're supposed to be launching the game with 2 of them in total. There's been no in-depth walkthrough of the zones, showcasing drawn out encounters, showing what it's like to go in and deal with people and turn in the blood shards and go through that process and then withdraw. Like, just little brief clips here and there, little brief mentions, a general rough overview, but nothing detailed, nothing specific, nothing really in depth. And considering we're so close to release, and this presumably is a pretty big feature, it's just been really thin, really lacking in terms of depth and meaningful showcases. I remember prior to Diablo 3's launch, right? They had PvP. It was this arena mode where like teams of 2 or 3 would go into an arena. They'd battle in like a best of 5 series. That was playable at BlizzCon. People could get hands-on time at the show floor and play many, many hours of this PvP mode. And now we're a month away from Diablo 4 launching, and we've gotten at most like 2 to 5 minutes worth of clips if you put all of the clips together from when D4 was first revealed to today. They've barely shown anything of it, nothing in depth, nothing drawn out, and it just seems really... There's nothing wrong with surprise and wanting to hold stuff for release, but it just seems in stark contrast to what Blizzard typically does prior to releasing their games. Now, the obvious answer is they are just wanting to save these things for players to experience it all the first time themselves when they play, when the game releases. And that is all well and good, right? But still, like, when you compare it to other Blizzard games of the past, prior to release, it feels like we've only got a small sample of what this game will have to offer. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. It's just a noticeable departure from what Blizzard has done in the past. There have been a lot of pre-release coverage for games. Like, prior to Diablo 3, I mean, there were hours and hours of footage showcasing different systems and different features and different zones. In fact, many of Blizzard games will get beta testing that includes the entire game prior to launch, so people can pretty much experience the entire game. But with D4, that hasn't even happened, because in the tests that they've run in the past, like even the tests that are still under NDA, those were still like segmented and restricted in some fashion. Not saying this is a bad thing, it's just a departure, and it does feel like they've been very tight-lipped when it comes to a lot of what D4 is going to have when it releases. Part of me is excited about that because there's still a lot more to see. Part of me would also really love to see more. I guess I would just say I'm a bit torn. And then that's not even mentioning all of the seasonal stuff and microtransactions, because yes, this is going to be a big part of the game, the seasonal updates, but also the battle pass and the cash shop. And they've yet to really detail what to expect from the seasons. They've just been very broad and basic and just saying it's going to be meaningful updates. And they really haven't given us a thorough look at what to expect from the battle pass and from the cash shop. No actual showcase. Although apparently we're going to be getting that really soon. Blizzard does have another live stream planned sometime later this month, during which they've said they will be showcasing seasons and monetization, and I'm happy that we're finally going to get a look. Now, I assume, or at the very least I am hoping, that they go into way more detail of what we can actually expect from these seasonal updates, because as of yet, like I said, it's been fairly vague. They've said there's going to be 3 to 4 seasons per year, that they will be more substantial than Diablo 3 seasons, and that they will be adding, quote, meaningful updates, which should include major new features, quest lines, enemies, legendary items, and more. Now, things like new quest lines and items, that's expected, of course. New enemies is fairly interesting, depending on how they do this, if it's not just reskins of existing enemy archetypes and families. But I am most keen to learn what are their plans for new features that they're going to be rolling out with seasons. The new features, the new content, the things that are different from the base game and the Eternal Realm, that is what I'm most interested in, and I'm so curious exactly how substantial or meaningful those are going to end up being. But beside the seasons, this is also where, yes, we're going to be learning about their plans for the monetization and the cash shop and the battle pass. And I just hope they give us a good look. I hope they're just forthright and be like, hey, this is what we're planning. Here's a rough estimate, or exactly what we're going to be launching with when it comes to the first battle pass and the cash shop at release. No Switch for Diablo 4. Diablo GM Rod Ferguson confirmed in a tweet this week that there is going to be no Switch version planned for the game. I am going to assume that this is a hardware issue, seeing as Diablo 3 is available on the platform, so it's not like Blizzard has issues with working with Nintendo. But, you know, the Switch at this point is getting pretty old. It released 6 years ago, and even back then it was behind the competition in terms of its capabilities. I do think what's very likely, though, is that whenever Nintendo does release their next hardware, whether that's called the Switch 2 or something else, that Diablo 4 probably gets ported over then. That seems very likely. I have actually seen videos of people playing Diablo 4, the beta, on the Switch that was not running natively. It was people using basically remote play apps to run the game on their PC and play it on the Switch, so that's a little bit different. Also not exactly sure if that's legal. Were those jailbroken Switches? I don't know enough about that hardware. And then I do want to as well mention and remind you that we do of course have the upcoming beta test. This is going to be running from May 12th to the 14th. It's going to include all of the Fractured Peaks, everything that we saw in the last beta, all 5 playable classes, all of the world events, all of the quest, all of that. However, some differences include that we can only level up to 20. In the last beta, the max was level 25. And there is also a new cosmetic reward, specifically this mount trophy. This is in addition to the wolf backpack that was rewarded for playing the prior beta. So you have to defeat a Shava at level 20 in order to unlock this brand new mount cosmetic. And keep in mind, this is going to be a lot tougher because since last beta, we could level up to 25, but this time we're capped at 20. They're not scaling a Shava's level down, so a Shava will be notably harder. If you do have trouble, by the way, just remember, if you're playing on World Tier 2, difficulty 2, you can bump it down to difficulty 1. The world boss will in turn become easier. So one really cool thing though is that NVIDIA just announced a driver update for the upcoming Diablo 4 Server Slam beta. So anyone with an RTX GPU will now be able to run DLSS 2, which boosts performance. And then also when the game fully launches on June 6th, GeForce RTX 40 series cards can activate DLSS 3 for even better performance. Now DLSS basically just renders your game at a lower resolution and then upscales it to a higher resolution. In turn, typically this ends up resulting in massive performance increases, anywhere from between 20 and 30% increased performance to upwards of 100% better. This specifically will result in pretty big increases for frame rate while playing the game, and all of this with little to no loss in the visual clarity. This is basically just the best form of anti-aliasing available on the market currently. It's pretty awesome tech, especially for anyone who is frame rate and performance minded, which I include myself in that group. I want my games to run smoothly and at the highest frame rate possible. So any game that supports DLSS it's a big win in my book. And in preparation of the beta, I also wanted to let you know about this skill planner. There is a full Diablo 4 skill tree planner available at d4planner.io. As the name implies, this lets you map out and plan a build for any of the game's 5 classes. It's presented and functions exactly like it does in game. You'll move down the skill twig, going from basic and core abilities all the way down to the ultimate ultimates and key passives. There is even a Paragon board planner, although I am pretty sure that this is just a placeholder at the moment, as we haven't seen and we don't know a majority of the boards for all of the classes or the nodes within those boards. Presumably, come release, this will be updated and accurate. I really love this like helpful community built tools whenever this comes out for any game that I play. Although it also always makes me wonder, like, why doesn't the developer just have this themselves on their official website? Like, why doesn't Diablo4.com have a skill tree planner? I know once the game comes out, you can just change your skill tree in the game, but you know what? That cost a bunch of gold, as we've learned, so people aren't going to be able to fuss around with it too much, so having an officially supported one would be good. But whether or not Blizzard officially does it themselves on their own website, I love when the community comes together and people actually put in the effort to do this. So d4planner.io is a place to try some builds. There you go. And then finally today, have you heard of marketing? You know, companies' efforts to promote their products. Well, this week, Blizzard sent me some marketing to share with you. So let's check out the marketing. This is the Diablo IV Limited Collector's Box, and it includes a variety of D4 themed goodies. So I'm just gonna bust it open and show you a little bit of what is in this package. We've got various pieces of art, Diablo themed art, concept art, which is cool to see. Got some of the minions of hell here. Looks like we got one of Tyrael and Lilith as well. We also have a full book, The Art of Diablo IV. This is supposed to be spoiler territory. I was asked actually not to open it up because it's supposed to spoil some of the story of Diablo 4 and stuff. So, but this is a massive book. I don't know, this looks like several hundred pages of art for the game, concept art and various photos, pictures, character models, designs, close-ups of faces. We got some scenes. There's also, let's pull whatever this thing is. It's got like a bunch of, it's not confetti. I think it's supposed to be like blood petals or something, or death of something, I don't know. Oh, keep in mind too, the game is not in this. This is one of those collector's things where you're not getting not even a digital version of the game, not even a key. This is just a swag box, if you will. So if you like Diablo 4 themed items and that stuff that you want to have in your house or whatever, that's exactly what this box is intended to be. Okay, I think this is the D4 candle. So this is a Diablo themed battery powered candle that you can just put on your desk or something. I don't know, what do you do with a battery powered candle? You put it there and you look at the light flicker and you say, yeah, oh, that looks like mildly realistic. Okay. And then on the other side here, underneath this little like trap door thing, we've got a Diablo themed pin, a pin of Herodrum, says the marketing information. And then we got two more things in here. One of them is this cloth map of Sanctuary. You know what, I'll be honest, I think this is actually pretty cool. Cloth maps are neat, right? This is how they used to do in the olden days before paper. I think that's right. Is it right? I'm assuming that's right. And then last but not least, we have got this little occult mouse pad here. Probably a little smaller for my personal liking, but if for not gaming, I could use this. You know, you'd use it for just a regular mouse pad for just doing regular work and stuff. But for gaming, I swipe really far. You know what I mean? So yeah, there you have it. That is a look at the Diablo 4 Collector's Box. Everything that comes with it. Personally, I'm just interested in good games. I mean, take a look at my gamer shelf, right? People usually pack that stuff with all sorts of goodies from all the games that they like. I like a lot of games. My gamer shelf is full of a bunch of sound panel foam because I haven't moved it yet. I don't know, but regardless, Blizzard, thank you very much for sending this over. Really appreciate it. Happy to share it with people who are interested in checking it out. I am just hoping and wanting you to make Diablo 4 a really good game, and I hope when it comes out, and I hope with the first seasonal update, we get something entertaining, engaging, that doesn't feel overly monetized, and that we really enjoy for many months and potentially years to come. At the very least, I just want a game that I can come back and revisit every so often to check out the latest updates. I'll binge at release for sure. That's going to happen. But after that, come back to check out the new seasons. Hopefully there's meaningful, interesting content that keeps that fresh and interesting over time. We will see. I can't wait to check it out. One of the many games I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, that does it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.